sometimes as we grow as leaders, we think the higher up we get, the more answers we're supposed to have. I think it's actually the less answers we need to have. It's how do we inspire people to want to go conquer that mountain, to gain market share or improve productivity or improve safety or whatever that is, and really listening to people and treating them respectfully as the whole person that they are and that they have great ideas.
Welcome to Working Women Mentor, the podcast that delivers mentorship in every conversation. Each episode, we meet remarkable women who share the real moments, challenges, and breakthroughs that shape their journeys. These are stories that inspire, empower, and remind us of what is possible. I'm your host, Rainey Alfers, and I cannot wait for you to meet today's guest. Let's jump in and uncover your next mentor moment. Hey everyone, welcome to Working Women Mentor. I'm your host, Rainey Alfers, and I am so excited to introduce you to Dr. Gretchen Gagel. She is absolutely incredible. Distinguished career in the construction and engineering industry with over 40 years of management and consulting expertise. She has released a book, Building Women Leaders, and that is really just the start of things because her incredible history early in her career and everything she's accomplished and her ability to support other women, to support other leaders, to build her networks from literally nothing. It's just incredible. I cannot wait for you to meet her and hear what she has to say because she is truly a champion of women. She's a champion of her field and her industry, and she gives back so much in this episode today. So here we go, Dr. Gretchen Gagel. Gretchen Gagel, thank you so much. Welcome to Working Women Mentor. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
We are beyond excited because even just before we press play and record our conversation about supporting other women and mentorship, like it's already blooming. So I can't wait to get into your story. Would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah. Gosh, I'll try and keep this as short. I've been in the...
Don't worry, we've got all the time in the world to listen to you.
Well, I've been in and out of the construction industry for 42 years. I started out as an intern for Lone Star Gas in Dallas, Texas, where you're sitting.
Love it.
When I was getting my engineering degree at SMU, my father told me I couldn't go to engineering school. And in fact, when I turned down my Harvard admission to go to engineering school, he disowned me. He was really angry about that.
Oh, wow.
In hindsight, I think he just felt it wasn't going to be an easy career for me. And yeah, being an engineering student in the early 80s as a woman had its challenges. Ralston Purina hired me as their first female operations manager. So 62 men and me in the country. We were talking about women mentorship. There was no woman. There was no woman accountants. We had women accountants at our plants, but really, from an operations standpoint, there were no other women. I had a great career with them. At 27, I was managing a plant with 800 employees.
Wow.
In upstate New York. And my first husband and I decided to leave and settle in Denver, did an MBA, and joined the largest investment banking strategy firm in construction in 94 as woman number 2. Out of 170, there were 2 of us this time.
Wow. At least you had one other lady with you, right?
Well, unfortunately, it's interesting because I thought, oh gosh, I have someone to mentor me. And she was just no ill intent, but just head down trying to make her way. And
right.
It was a man's world back then in construction. I have been in the industry, as I said, on and off since then. I left for one short period to run a women's foundation when I was 40. And that's the first time I saw women in community. I was 40 years old.
Wow.
And I went, oh my gosh, there's all these cool women.
There's a whole new world out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first conference for the Women's Funding Network, they were selling jewelry and scarves in the lobby. And I didn't know what to do. Like I was like, wow, you all wear jewelry and scarves and things like that. When I came back into the industry, construction in 2013, I really tried to bring that back in with me as president of another management consulting firm. And now I'm shifting my entire focus through my book and my institute to helping advance women in construction, engineering, energy, mining, really any industry.
I love that introduction that you gave. I have a question because I'm thinking about the femininity side of that, like early on. I'm curious, did you feel like you had to suppress that
Yeah,
somewhat?
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, the dog food plant, I'm walking around in steel-toed boots and a hard hat. And
Not feeling very feminine in that, right? No matter what.
I do remember keeping my pink fingernails. That was like my one statement about it. And it was very challenging. I had a maintenance worker that kept trying to ask me out on a date, and I kept saying no. Then he started yelling at me in the plant one day, and I literally had to call him into his supervisor's office and explain what respect looked like in a plant. And there were a lot of gender specific things like that. But when I joined FMI, I wore khakis and blue blazers, loafers. I smoked cigars when I played golf with the men.
Wow.
Anything I could do to
Assimilate.
fit in. Yep.
How interesting. Okay, we'll get into all of this. Gretchen, did you have time to text a friend and ask them how they would describe you to our audience?
I did. My friends, it's pretty easy because and I was thinking about not just friends, but my family as I'm sitting here in the city where my whole family is. And I'm crazy Aunt G, crazy great Aunt G to my 5 great nieces and nephews. People describe me as really passionate, driven, kind of a work hard, play hard mentality. I love to travel the world, and I swam with whale sharks last year, and I've been to the gorillas in Rwanda. And so I'm seen as someone that also wants to help people. That's what my friends say about me, is that I've had a personal vision statement since my 20s of leaving the world a better place than I found it. And I really try and live by that personal vision statement.
And you are. and it is nice when people see you and see that what you are doing every day is also who you are. So I think not only are you living it, but people can actually observe it and see it, because often there's a disconnect. It's what you may want to do, what you may think or feel. Someone hasn't noticed that about you yet. So I love that your community and to have a moniker Crazy Aunt G. I know you're a lot of fun. So, well, with over 40 years plus in working and industry and careers, I know that you have had to have a defining moment that changed. I mean, that moment with your dad not going to Harvard, deciding on this career path. Can you take us back to that time period and what that was like for you making this decision to go into your industry?
Oh, gosh. It's interesting because when I think back, so I had a science teacher, a female chemistry physics teacher, Jan Sear, who I still stay in touch with. I had a glass of wine with her a few months ago, and a male math teacher who really inspired me. I'm a first generation college graduate. I grew up in a well-to-do family, but nobody had ever gone to college except for my older sister. She was the first in the family. And they really encouraged me to excel in high school. And I was invited to a recruiting session at the Naval Academy. So as a National Merit finalist, 300 of us were invited to the Naval Academy for a week. And they did classes on all the different types of engineering. I don't think I would have ever thought of engineering had, you think about.
Yeah, you weren't ever introduced to it, right? I mean, yeah.
Well, people think God, since I was 3 years old, I wanted to be an engineer, that everything's kind of laid out for you. And it's just funny how happenstance. And I remember sitting there and thinking, I don't think I like electrical, and I love mechanical and civil. I took my electives in civil, so design of steel structures and things like that. But what if I hadn't been invited to that? Would I have ended up in engineering? I don't know. And the reason that I went to SMU is that I had a really strong cooperative work program. And I knew once I left home, I didn't want to go back. So I co-opted for Lone Star Gas for 3 semesters. And then I decided I wanted to get out in 4 years. But it's funny, those little decisions. And I ran into my former supervisor from Lone Star Gas about 8 years ago. And he walked up to me and said, "It's Gretchen from SMU." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, how do you remember me?" He's like, "How many Gretchen interns do you think we had at Lone Star Gas?"
I'm sure you stuck out a little bit, right? Yeah.
Only woman.
But to be the only woman, obviously this is a male-dominated industry. I mean, you lightly touched on this, but I mean, for being a young woman in that male-dominated industry, and then, like you said, in an industry that not just is male-dominated, but wasn't promoted to women, wasn't known and the exposure wasn't there. How did you overcome? Like, how did you identify early on, like, okay, I am going to have to assimilate, but I still need to be me. I still need to bring my brain, my professionalism, my talents to this role, but I
Yep.
still need to fit in. Like, what was that balance like for you?
It's really interesting because Ralston Purina, now Nestle Purina, had a really rigorous training program, and they let go 40% of their trainees after the first year. So you had to work every job in the plant. You had to write up how the entire plant worked. And I just loved the challenge of that and getting to know you had to get along with everyone at every level, to the vice presidents that came to visit. And I just remember really loving it. Now, I will say that male mentors played a huge role. So Mark Burns was our plant manager. I think he's retired. He stayed with Ralston for years and years, was like second in command, was our youngest plant manager at the time. And I remember going to him and saying, I'm out of here. I'm tired of being in a dog food plant in Oklahoma. I can't take it anymore. I've taken the LSAT. I'm going to law school. I'm going to learn Chinese, and I'm going to go become a lawyer. And Mark said, please, you've got such an opportunity here to be a trailblazer and to be successful at Ralston Purina. I'm going to get you your own plant. And he got me a cereal plant in Davenport, Iowa. It was one of 4 plants, and transferred me there to run the cereal plant. And then I got another mentor there, Ron Earps, who was a special person in my life too. But people who advocate for you and help you make that was the right decision for me. I would have looked back and really regretted that I had worked so hard to get promoted to running half of that dog food plant and then walked away for another choice. Although who knows, I might have been an attorney in China right now. But life's full of those, as you said, life's full of those forks in the road.
They are the intersection. It's which direction are you going?
And they're all
you've got to go one direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you chose a path. Yep. And look how it's turned out for you. But you also get to still do all these wonderful creative and traveling and worldwide and these endeavors that you have. I love that you touch on the male role models too, because we often find, I've had 100+ conversations with women about this. And it's even if you're in an L-dominated industry, even if you're not, there are wonderful men who are helping us and seeing us and supporting us. And like you said, being that advocate. How did you take that early on relationship and role with people like that and develop it into leadership skills that you had not really learned yet being young? You had not learned this. I know you said they did some training for you, but how did that leadership piece evolve for you, Gretchen?
Well, and there wasn't very much training on leadership.
No leadership training either.
I that by watching people and saying, I like what he's doing. I don't like what he's doing. And I say he because they were all men above me.
Yeah.
The second plant, Ron Earps, was 4 plants in one location. And we purchased beech nut baby foods from Nestle. And it was a challenging situation when we purchased it. I don't know if you remember beech nut, but they were convicted of putting sugar in baby apple juice when they were owned by Nestle. And we purchased them, and they were losing quite a bit of money. And Ron was made head of operations, everything but marketing and sales for that company, and was moving to New York. And I walked in his office and I said, take me with you. And he said, well, I'm not sure I have a role for you. And I said, well, I just want to go because I know I'm going to learn. You learn so much in difficult situations. And he did. And for the first 6 months, all I did was find problems and fix them. And his mentorship was a huge part of my development as a leader. Then he gave me manufacturing, and then I ran distribution for a year.
Did you know, Gretchen, I'm curious, did you know that you had grown out of where you were already? Or did you just think there's more to learn, or that you had learned everything you had in Oklahoma?
Well, I was in Davenport at that time running the cereal plant, and I'd been there 2 years. We overcame a huge challenge in that plant. I'm so fortunate that I've been handed these challenges because when I was running the cereal plant in Davenport, oat bran became a craze. So this would have been about 1989.
Oat bran,
and
yes.
They came out with this big article that oat bran lowered cholesterol. And we didn't make oat bran, we made oatmeal. And they said, hey, can you figure out how to make oat bran on this equipment? Which it wasn't designed to do. And we learned that it clogs up and does really disastrous things. But headquarters every day wanted to know how much oat bran I was making. And I turned a 1-shift operation into a 3-shift. And so that was kind of the challenge I overcame in Davenport. And that was running smoothly. And then this opportunity to go to the baby food plant arose. And I went, oh gosh, I think I'm ready I like situations like that where there's a big hurdle or something to build, or yeah, I think I've learned that about myself, and to grow and learn as a person. I'm so curious too, just a curious person.
Curiosity is a beautiful quality to have. How did you were put in these difficult situations, you realize there's no better way to learn. And I love that approach because it's daring. The uncertainty is almost, you thrive on it because you know you can fix it or you're going to find a way. But can you give us maybe a framework in your mind, because you've been in so many of these situations, of how we can actually look at problems we're in or approaching something in our business or our life or our own career that is problematic or we know could be so much better? Like, are there some simple steps? I don't mean to simplify it, but educate us on that.
Yeah. So what I learned when I walked in that baby food plant is that I didn't know how to make baby food. I saw the glass jars, and back then we put everything in glass, and sometimes they exploded when we were filling them, and glass went everywhere in a baby food plant. You had to, clean it all up before you could start making baby food again. But my greatest lesson in leadership in that plant, and Peter Drucker was kind of a thing, and TQM and total quality management, I didn't have to have the answers as the leader. I had to inspire people to identify the problems and lift up their ideas to fix them. And I'm a huge fan of Amy Edmondson, Fearless Organization. Been on my podcast. I love her work. Psychological safety is what I was doing. I just didn't know what to call it then, because what I said is, and we really changed the culture of that organization. It was really a check your brain at the door. The bosses have the ideas. The bosses have the power. The bosses tell you what to do. And I came in and said, we're going to do self-directed work teams, and we're going to put teams of people together to solve problems. And I'm going to walk the floor and listen to you every single day. And I have a great story. When they sent me over to manage the warehouse, one of the 30 plus year employees said, can I take you for a ride? And we had golf carts, massive, 250,000.
Facilities to get around on.
And he said, we're organized all wrong. And he explained it to me. And I said, we're going to go up to engineering and get a plot of the warehouse so you can draw out your ideas. He had never been in the office in 30 years.
Wow.
So here we go. Off we went to engineering. And I said, draw it how you think it should be. We're going to present it to every shift. He did. They had ideas too. They reorganized the whole warehouse without 1 hour of overtime because they felt empowered. So sometimes as we grow as leaders, we think the higher up we get, the more answers we're supposed to have. I think it's actually the less answers we need to have. It's how do we inspire people to want to go conquer that mountain, to gain market share or improve productivity or improve safety or whatever that is, and really listening to people and treating them respectfully as the whole person that they are, and that they have great ideas that will work and great other ideas that don't work. You have to reduce the risk.
That's right. Other ideas that don't work, but generating them. And I think that applies to your home life, right? I mean, that applies to everywhere. I'm thinking even my son, teaching him problem solving and skills and helping him figuring out, inspiring him. I mean, this can go to many different areas of our life. It's interesting to hear you speak, because when I think of women in engineering, women in construction, I would bet, a very small percentage of us listening really would think about running a CPG plant or running these different industries that your technical brain applies to. Just hearing you in the dog food plant, I don't know if I would think taking your engineering degree would land you there, to be quite honest. And it's the variety of your skill set and the way you're thinking. So when you look at women younger going into this field today, what is the draw for them? What are you hearing right now in this industry? Because I know you are a huge proponent of supporting women.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had I'm not remembering her name, the founder of Goldie Blocks. I spoke with her at a conference years ago about this whole pink aisle, blue aisle thing where we're, kind of this gender, girls play with dolls, boys play with blocks. And through her research, she really learned that women in particular need to understand how what they're doing helps society. And I don't think we've done a good job of making that connection, especially in construction, because my girlfriends, when I came in back into construction, they're like, you work in construction?
Yeah, that's
And
what I mean. Like I'm imagining the hard hat. Like I'm imagining homes being built, big commercial buildings or something being built. Like that is what I'm thinking. Immediate imagery.
Yeah. Well, what I say to them is, do you like charging your cell phone? Because that all gets constructed. Do you like driving on a road? Do you like flying out of airports? Do you like having a baby in a hospital instead of a field? Do you like the restaurants that you sit in? Do you, everything, the computer that we're on right now was made in Intel was a client of mine. General Motors was a client of mine.
Wow.
And Marriott, Starbucks, Victoria's Secret, I've consulted them on how to remodel their stores faster. So everything we build and maintain the assets of society as we face, not to get political here, but climate change or, we have permafrost that's melting and pipelines are buckling and roads and things like that. Earthquakes and fires, and we solve those problems. We figure out how to move people underneath Sydney. I got to judge the major projects in Australia as chair of the judging panel. First female chair of the judging panel. They
Congratulations.
To one project in all of Australia. But they built a new tunnel underneath Sydney and Sydney Harbor, and they had to monitor the vibration of all the other tunnels and buildings to make sure that what they were doing didn't make them all collapse.
Wow.
And those are really cool things that we do for society. We just don't do a good job of promoting ourselves because we're all engineers.
Yeah, that you're not marketers, right? I mean, let's face it. It's
we need a hit Netflix series. I keep saying, like, if we can have Grey's Anatomy and we can have shows about attorneys, we need great shows about construction.
Well, and speaking of construction and bridges, you were also involved in another project.
At Bridges to Prosperity?
Yes, please. Would you mind sharing with us about this?
No, I'm happy to. I've sat on, I think I haven't counted recently, 12 nonprofit boards. I sit on corporate boards too, but I really believe in giving back to community. And Bridges to Prosperity was the first chance for me to take nonprofit and construction and put it together. Bridges to Prosperity, when I joined, was mostly focused on the build of bridges. So building 350 bridges with the government of Rwanda. And they are in the middle of nowhere, that give people access to markets. Really, they increase women's participation in markets by 75%, according to our outcome studies.
It's incredible.
Now, Bridges to Prosperity has partnered with Helvetas and is working on getting the capital, the money to get the bridges built. We figured out how to build these cable bridges in the most remote. I've been to a bridge in Bolivia. And these bridges are life-changing, and they actually save lives, people being swept away in rivers during the rainy season, et cetera. So, yeah, it was a great organization to be on their board.
Was that the first time that you've joined a community project like that you were able to use your skill set and see it executed?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't work on the technical side. As chair of the board, I was worried about our 40 corporate partners during COVID that suddenly couldn't go build bridges and revenue replacement and things of that nature. But I got to visit 2 bridges, the one in Bolivia and the one in Rwanda, and see lots of videos of our corporate teams from WSP and different engineering and construction companies that go to finish the bridge for the last 10 days to 2 weeks. And what a fulfilling, purposeful experience that was for these corporate teams going out and doing the bridges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's incredible to see the impact they've had in the community. And like you said, it changes lives. It changes economies. I mean, let's face it, it changes everything. So speaking of these large corporations and donors and so forth, when you are someone listening who is working in a company or a founder even, and you're thinking of what mentorship looks like around you right now, whether it be in your own business or in the one you're working in, how could you explain to us the difference of being an advocate for yourself in the absence of mentorship versus actually seeking mentorship within the company? Should we be looking for both? Should we always be an advocate for ourselves? What is the difference? What's your view on this?
Yeah, you have to be your own big fan first. If you don't back yourself, if you don't think you're awesome, in Melbourne, Australia. I divide my time between America and Australia. I have a wooden Wonder Woman puppet that sits on the shelf next to my bathroom mirror. And that's the first thing I see every morning is Wonder Woman. And when I was trying to finish my PhD and just really not sure I was going to get enough companies for my study, I changed my password to I am Wonder Woman. So you have to pump yourself up, and not in an egotistical way. I feel like I have a lot of humility. And you need to surround yourself with raving fans. You need to have mentors, sponsors, allies. You were talking about men.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have a paid coach.
Good for you.
And I coach other CEOs, and people are like, why do you have a coach? I'm like, I'm not done.
Yeah.
I'm not done learning.
Evolving.
I'm 60.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that I'm learning until the day I go into the ground. And I have 4 mentors. I have 4 long-term mentors, 2 women, 2 men, who only one of them did I ever work with. And they play different roles in mentoring, some more business, some more personal, but they are my foundation. And I know they're there for me.
Ever thought about starting a podcast but got stuck on the tech, the time, or what to even say? You're not alone. I've been there. And that's why I created the 7-day AI-powered podcast launch course to help women like you go from idea to launch, fast, smart, and without all the overwhelm. Who has time for that? And to get you started, I'm giving you my 50 favorite ChatGPT prompts to help you plan your content, name your show, and find your voice. Head over to workingwomenmentor.com to grab the prompts and start building the platform you've been putting off for too long. Would you give us an insight into one of those relationships? Maybe some advice that they've given you or something that really stands out today?
Oh, yeah. The wonderful Barb Grogan. And I don't have a home in Denver anymore, but I'm just finishing 7 years on the Brinkman Construction Board, 3 years as chair of that board. And so I'm in Denver quite a bit for meetings, and I lived there for 28 years. When I left FMI, the construction consulting investment banking firm when I was 40, Hugh Rice, one of my other mentors, said, you need to know Barb Grogan. And I had been flying every week for 11 years. I didn't know anybody in Denver. My kids were 7 and 8. Teachers used to joke when I'd show up, oh my gosh, they have a mother. And yes, my kids are fine. That's a whole nother topic. I have a TEDx talk about that. So he said, you need to know Barb. So she was being honored at a breakfast. I think it was a Red Cross breakfast. And she was being honored. And I walked up and gave her my card and said, I'm the new president of the Women's Foundation of Colorado. Hugh Rice, I used to work at FMI with Hugh Rice. He suggested I meet you. And, oh, how lovely. And I thought, nothing. I mean, she called me the next day.
Oh.
She called me. And she's a busy, she just stepped on as chair of a university. She is a busy, busy woman. And she said, let's go to lunch.
I love that.
And she took me under her wing, as did one of my other mentors, Mary Sissel, who was chair of the board of the foundation that hired me. And they just took me under their wing and made sure I knew everybody, made sure I was included in the International Women's Forum, which I just sat on that board in Australia. And just to this day, 20 years later, is just such a great friend and somebody that I can go to at any point in my life for advice about anything.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, you were introduced by someone else. You walk up, you say hello because, why not? You have to do that. And here you are. I mean, years and years later, a mentorship and so much help, I'm sure, for both of you, right? The relationship is reciprocal.
It is. And relationships. So it's kind of funny. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, oh my God, all these women. We had a luncheon for 2,600 people. It was the largest luncheon in Denver. In fact, we raised $6 million at one of those luncheons.
That's incredible.
It was the largest fundraising event ever in Denver. And John Hickenlooper, then mayor of Denver, and Bill Ritter, who was governor, named a day after me when I retired from that foundation. And I was crying. All my women friends were there, and I couldn't speak. I was completely overcome. And me not being able to speak, people are like, oh my gosh.
Something's wrong.
Yeah, something's wrong. But that relationship has transcended everything. So a kid in a candy store, lots of relationships. Then you realize you can't, as you get older, you can't put energy into every relationship to the same extent.
Right.
And Edgar Schein, the noted academic from MIT, was my coach for a year, the year before he passed away at 94. I know. Wow. I found him during my PhD. He's a remarkable person. And I'd done criteria for work. I do a lot of things. I teach, I coach, I run leadership programs, but he had me develop criteria for my friends.
Interesting.
And my mentors and who you spend time with in life. And I realized that I can only put energy into so many relationships. My 4 mentors, I see them constantly. They're number one priority. Then there's a kind of the next ring of friends. And I want to be with people that are curious, that are positive, that are trying to make a difference in the world. So when you talked about values, I talk about grounded self-leadership in my book, that your leadership is grounded in your values and your personal purpose, and that you start finding your tribe of people that are aligned, that nobody has the right or wrong, but you're aligned in what's of value to you.
And it's interesting because everyone, we know the adage to surround ourselves with wonderful people, but it's not that easy, right? And to take the first step to set your own criterion on what you were looking for, I think is often overlooked, Gretchen. I mean, how many of us out there are like, well, when we're dating, when we're finding that soulmate, we do the pro con sometimes. We decide then, but think about it. Do we really ever do it with these other relationships in our life and figure out the absolute must-haves? That must have been an interesting process for you.
It is. And wonderful means different things for different people. That's the important part. And if I'm choosing not to spend time with someone, it's not because I don't think they're wonderful. I just only have so much to go around. And for my birthday, turning 60 last year was really a milestone, and having dinner with my 6 closest girlfriends in Melbourne. And I've only been in Australia for 6 years. So I had to restart over completely. I knew one person when I moved to Australia. I take that back. I knew 2 because my partner was Australian and we moved over there together. But from a business standpoint, I knew one person and started a company at 54 in Australia.
Love it.
And so you just start making new friends and finding ways to be helpful. And that's how I started the women's leadership program in the pipeline industry over there, is just seeing an opportunity and diving in and saying, hey, American Gas Association has a women's leadership program. How about we replicate it over here in Australia? And now we're about to kick off cohort 10.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. And it's also, you think about it, how do you said specifically that I only have so much time, and it's not because they're not wonderful. How do you politely not spend time with some of those folks? Is there an art to this? Saying no, declining events, deciding where to spend it, because this can get tricky for some people. It's why we get into the loop of yes, yes, yes.
Yes. And I'm a people pleaser too. So that becomes really challenging. I'm going to go back years and years ago. I want to say 25 years ago, I made a decision that somebody was not a positive energy person in my life. And I tried to just kind of graciously not call them to do things. And they called me on it. And I had to sit down and say, look, I think we're at different points in our lives, and I want to be there for you. However, we have different opinions about certain things, and maybe it's just a time for a little bit of a break from one another. It was hard. It's not an easy conversation. Moving to Australia, oh my gosh, I just went to the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame dinner. Barb, that I was just talking about, was along with another close friend, Barbara Bridges and Christine Bonero. And another friend, when I walk up to in the cocktail party, said something I can't repeat in a podcast, but I said, it's so fun living in Australia because people think they're so excited to see you when you show up at something in Colorado. I think, though, there's just some natural selection process that happens. And yeah, I would encourage people, even if it leads to one of those difficult conversations, if it's a drain, if it's an energy drain, if this is a person that your gas tank just feels like it's on empty every time you spend time with them. And I'm not talking about not being supportive of friends. We all have times where our friends are going through difficult times, or our colleagues, We need to be there to support them. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And I feel like we all know inside, it's that when you see someone's name pop up on your phone, or when you see the email pop in, it's, are you moving it aside? Are you, get back to that? Like there's this little piece inside of you that you actually do know. And then it's like, what to do next. So tell us about the book. Because this has been your baby. I mean, this is an incredible Building Women Leaders. Please, how did this idea come about? How long did it take you? What's the impact been? Tell us more.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. Kelly Schulte with Wiley reached out to me and asked me to write the book.
Not many of us have that going on. Usually it's the self-publish route.
Yeah, no, because I'm very active on LinkedIn, and it's ironic because Edgar, we developed this criteria for what I was going to do and not do also, right? And we decided I wasn't going to write for a while.
Okay.
He passed away in January. Callie reached out to me in March and said, will you write a book? And I was like, Edgar, what do I do?
You thinking?
He said, don't write for a while. Write when you're older. And I'm like, okay, well, opportunity knocks on your door. So you just have to open it.
That's fair.
And I had this brand new PhD in leadership, board culture and change. And back to my personal mission. I want to help people. If I write this book, will it help people? And I thought, yes, this book will help.
It passed the filter, right? That topic, it went right through.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it really is a book for men and women. And it's a great book about leadership, regardless of any industry that you're in. I think it's a good book about starting with yourself, this grounded self-leadership. Like, what are my values? How do I build courage? How do I have humility? How do I think critically? And then building relationships, trust, and all the things that go into building these one-to-one relationships, and then leading teams and even organizations, and how to lead in your industry. So anyone from any industry can write the book. I wrote the darn thing in about 7 months. Lots of road trips on the beach in Australia, locking myself in.
Sounds terrible, Gretchen. Come on.
I had to reward myself. So when I swam with the whale sharks, I wrote for 9 hours in a hotel room. And then the next day I swam with whale sharks all day. So it was
release.
Work and play. That's me, work and play. And yeah, I'm very excited about it. I think it's a kind of like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I still take that off the shelf and read it.
That's a great one.
Yeah. And I want it to be that kind of reference book. It talks about mentors. It talks about self-care. Talks about allyship. So if you're thinking, gosh, I really need a mentor, you can pull it off. And there's a whole chapter on that, on how to find a mentor and, how to determine what advice would be helpful to even know who to go think about being a mentor, right? So I hope it's that kind of book for people, that they leave it on the shelf and can pull it off for different topics. And of course, there's stories about being a woman in construction and a chapter on unconscious bias and dominant culture, because that's what we face. Yeah. It's just unconscious bias, and it's unconscious.
What feedback are you getting from the book? Because I know that people have received it very well. It's selling. I mean, you are becoming known for this book in itself. I mean, beyond your other accomplishments, of course. But how are you feeling about this feedback, and what are they saying?
Yeah, people are saying great things. Only a few people have seen the book at this point because it's available for pre-order, but lots of people are ordering it.
Yeah.
And they're excited to read it. And Hugh Rice, one of my mentors, wrote one of the forewords, and Jan Tuckman, who's another incredible female leader in the construction industry, wrote the other foreword. And so they read the book before they wrote the foreword. And Hugh's foreword actually made me cry, because nobody says to you when you're in the thick of things, wow, things are really hard for you, aren't they? I really appreciate how hard you're working to be one of 6 managing directors at FMI and the first female managing director at FMI. I mean, they just go, you get positive feedback, but for someone to say she really carved a path that was hard and did it with grace.
Yeah. Because you're like, yes, It was hard, everyone. Mm-hmm. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah, thank you for noticing.
Oh, that made my eyes water, Gretchen.
Yeah, there's 129 people in the book. That's the other amazing part, is that I've taken snippets from 50 interviews, podcasts. We have Olympians, Anna Mears, and corporate leaders. People outside of construction are in the book as well. Amy Edmondson's in the book. Michael Beer at Harvard's in the book. So I've really tried to kind of like Search Inside Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Another great book is incorporate ideas from lots of different people. So it's not just my thinking.
And some of those ideas, like you said, came from your podcast. Tell us about your podcast, Gretchen.
Yeah, Greatness is the name of it. I had started a podcast for the last company I was president of in America, the Built Revolution, and I loved it. And so when I went to Australia, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do when I got to Australia. I'd been flying 120 flights a year as president of a company and doing my PhD on the weekends for 4 years. So pretty much I wanted to chillax a little bit when I got to Australia. And I joined the Australian Institute for Company Directors, and they happened to be having their I was living in Canberra at the time, their Canberra dinner that week. And Dr. Brendan Nelson, who is, gosh, how do you explain? He's been just an iconic politician, ambassador to NATO. He's now one of the CEOs of Boeing, just an incredible leader, was the keynote speaker. And I thought, he's fascinating. And I walked up to him and I said, I'm thinking about starting a new podcast here in Australia. Would you be my first guest? And he said, yes. And then I was off and running again. So I have 147. Yeah. And I've only had one no. I won't say who it is. I just can't get past their people. But
Yet, Gretchen.
Yet. No doesn't mean no to me. You know me well in such a short amount of time. It means not now. But I will read an article in HBR. I read an article about how we should talk about privilege at work. For example, Lee Jordan, who was Chief Diversity Officer, I'm going to get this wrong, Chevron, I think. And I just emailed him and said, Lee, I think it's important to talk about privilege at work. Would you come on my podcast? And so it's a variety of topics about leadership and lifting up inspiring stories, a construction project with 53% women on it, doing a girls' school. And I just love meeting people all over the world and meeting people like you being on your podcast and learning about your passion for mentorship, et cetera. I think there's just a great value in connecting with different people with different ideas and different knowledge and different expertise.
I would agree. I love your story of, it's almost full circle. It's like you started in this industry I didn't know really anything about. You sort of just forged your own path without any other women around you. And look at you today, with this enormous community of women who support you, and you go to new countries and you find these groups and you thrive in them and build them. And from not having any imprint at all, like you are now the imprint through your book and your podcast and your relationships you're building. So, I mean, it is incredibly impressive to see what you can turn into something, I guess, from really not knowing. You've done it, and it's really admirable.
Thank you. And, I'm starting a new institute, a global institute called Women Thriving in Construction, womenthrivingin construction.org. And I want to dedicate the rest of my career, whatever that is, to helping advance women in all fields, but in particular, construction, engineering, energy, and mining, because they're great industries. And I want women to know that and to thrive in them.
What a wonderful goal to have. Gretchen, what is your mentor moment that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
I would like to leave with you. I regularly speak to groups of people and I'll say, how many of you have a mentor? And I haven't done a statistical analysis of this, but I'm going to say it's less than 20% of people in the room. Mentors are such a gift. They're such a gift. And as you said, it's a two-way relationship because you're giving them the opportunity to help someone. And so really thinking about who is that special person that I can go to, that I trust, and really ask for advice about anything, to not delay, reach out to them and really leverage those wonderful people in your life. You can never have too many. As I said, I have 4.
I would agree. What great advice. Gretchen, where can everyone find you and support you?
Yeah, GretchenGagel.com, my name, GretchenGagel.com. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn, and there'll be news there about the new institute, the book, etc., all kinds of exciting things.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. What an incredible conversation, Gretchen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rainey. I really have enjoyed being on your podcast.
Hey, wait, before you go, I have one ask. Would you please leave us a review? Tapping on those stars on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening to this will really help us. It'll spread the word and your voice and your impact as well, because every episode we are giving mentor moments. And I hope you can continue this conversation with us at workingwomenmentor.com. To apply to be a guest, find show notes and episode details. And if you've ever wanted to start a podcast, we've got the perfect course for you. Follow us on Instagram at Working Women Mentor and DM us the word mentor, and I'll send you over our free guide on mentorship so you can incorporate it into your life. Thanks so much for joining us. And until then, cheers until the next episode.